Hey there guys, Dragon Master here, and I want to welcome you to Star Wars and Earth, Unity Episode 13, Mandalorians vs. Hutt's Part 2. So, I don't have anything to say, so I guess without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So, we start off in the Mandalorian system, a few minutes before both the ships crash down. Capital ships crash down into Mandalore. The battle is going fierce currently, but sadly for both the Mandalorians and Hutts, there's a third party in play currently. So while both forces are currently tearing each other apart, the third party has sent them a little surprise. This third party has left quite a few surprises on both capital ships. Currently in secret in their hangar bay and all across the ship are small, tiny nanobite bombs, which release a sort of destructive force of dark matter, which is quite dangerous. The third party's plan is quite simple, as they hope to not only bring both these capital ships down onto Mandalore, but for the dark matter to do its work and start tearing the ship apart and spread it all across Mandalore. As this dark matter is sort of different, one could say, this third party has used very advanced technology to modify it and make into something new, a sort of poison, which they plan to test on Mandalore and the Hutts. And after a minute, the bombs go off and begin tearing the capital ships apart as explosions erupt from both ships, and both ships begin crashing down. And then we go back to the few minutes now, as the Mandalorians and Hutt see that both ships are currently coming straight for the capital. With this said, the Mandalorians begin fully evacuating the city quickly, as the Mandalorians and Hutts begin firing, hoping that they can slow it down, as both Hutts and Mandalorians break off their fights in space, as they currently have people down there, and the Hutts on the ground don't want to die. They try to use their ship's gravitational pull or wires to currently slow the ship down, but it's only slowing it down just a tiny bit, as both ships eventually, after a few minutes, crash straight into the capital. Luckily, the Mandalorians had already begun evacuating the city hours earlier, but still, it wasn't enough, as some people did die. Enraged, the Mandalorians demanded to know, but then they saw something. As they look, along with the Hutts, they see that there's some sort of purple and black markings all across the ship, and they notice something is wrong. The Mandalorians and Hutts look at each other before they immediately decide to take a break and begin studying. So, for the next couple days, the fighting would stop. There would still be small skirmishes, as the Hutts would, on the other side of the planet, would establish a base where their crash site is. While on the other side, the Mandalorians would begin establishing their base as they slowly began evacuating people off of Mandalore. Currently in a meeting, one of the Hutt clans are currently the Mandalorian clans are currently in a meeting. One of the Mandalorian clan leaders says, "We need to do something. We need to get revenge on those Hutts for what they've done. Thanks to their actions, whatever this sort of poison dark matter on the ship is starting to slowly spread now onto the planet. I've already seen any surrounding lands, the radioactive land, begin experiencing weird shifts, and the radiation is starting to go up. What can we do? Another Mandalorian clan leader says, and then the guy responds saying, I know just what we need to do. We need to attack them where it hurts. We need to take and attack Nal Hutta, their home world. And many of them look surprised and say, Are you mad? That planet is extremely guarded, and now with the war breaking out, it's only become even more guarded. Plus, we need to all our people here, as we've already lost enough. And the Mandalorian leader tries to argue, but most are in agreement with his opponent. And then the meeting ends. As everyone leaves, the Mandalorian leader sips into his chair and sighs and says, "There has to be something we can do. We gotta teach those Hutts a lesson," he says. But to his surprise, when he's about to get up, he sees that there's someone sitting up in the chair across from him, and he's surprised and looks, "Who are you?" There's a sort of hooded, shadowy figure, and this figure just chuckles and says, "Relax, I mean you no harm. I only come for the betterment of the Mandalorians." And asks, "What could you offer us?" And I explain, "Well, much, as you can see. As you can see, the Hutts have brought this sort of poison onto your planet, and they'll be fine. All they have to do is pull their forces out. The only reason they haven't is because they've already begun looking for Beskar and have begun extracting it." This got the Mandalorian leader's attention and says, "What else?" "Well, as you can guess, I'm sort of a person who likes to spread information and wants to give justice to the people of our galaxy, so I decided to share this little information. And who knows, maybe we can get an alliance." And says, "What information?" And he gives it to him. And when the Mandalorian leader looks at it and says, and gasps, "What? This new weapon they've manufactured it?" And says, "Yes, the Hutts have begun manufacturing it. They hope to use this to conquer the galaxy, to poison the planets with this sort of new anti-dark matter experiment of theirs. As long as they keep out of their own space, they don't care what happens to the rest of the galaxy." It says, "How do I know this isn't forged and you're not telling the and that you're telling the truth?" And says, "You don't. You just have to go on a hunch. Do you truly believe that the Hutts wouldn't go this far?" And the Mandalorian thinks for a minute before says, "No, you're probably right." Against his better judgment, he agrees and says, "What do you want me to do?" And says, "Well, what were you originally planning to do? To attack Nal Hutta?" "Well, there you go," he says, as the leader sighs and says, "Maybe you're right," and walks out of the tent and prepares to go gather his forces. And then back in the room, the shadowy figure chuckles and says, "All too easy. These people are so easy to manipulate," along with Jason. "Ah, this is quite the little game we're playing, huh?" he says to no one in particular. "It's so easy to manipulate people." He sighs. "Well, we have work to do, huh?" he says. But as again, there's no one in the room, or so you might think, as he's talking to someone through a mental link. But who knows who it truly is. And that's where we're going to leave it off. So as you can see, there isn't much action in this one. The reason why is that I'm sort of setting it up for like the next battle for Hutts versus Mandalorians versus Hutts, which is going to take place in Nal Hutta. So next video is probably going to go back to Jason and the others. But yeah, I guess Jason and Luke, and see how Naboo's doing. And we'll get back to the Mandalorian leader attacking Nal Hutta. But if you're probably wondering, who was the shadow figure talking to through his mental link? Well, who truly knows? There are a few options, but I'll leave you guys to guess in the comments below. So without further ado, goodbye.